68 Chevelle floor pan replacement project. That little yellow baby there is going to get a lot of use, and we are going to cut out a whole bunch of floor, and during this there'll be a ton of scope creep. Stay tuned. Good morning. As you can see, the floor is well underway for being replaced. I cut out the large sections of it so I could easily find the spot welds, center up where the spot weld was made, put a little drill mark in it, and then use a little spot weld remover drill bit, which I will show shortly. And then you drill in and you start to pry it up and it pops out. So there are some small drill holes, not all the way through, really just a divot. Center punch it first, put a little divot in it, and then it comes right out. There you go. That easy. Below the sheet metal are these two supports that I'm trying to free up the old sheet metal from without damaging these, so that I can weld the new floors onto them once they're cleaned up. That's why all the extra effort of getting the spot welds out and not just drilling giant holes through there. The new floors will get laid in once all this is cut out of the way and cleaned up. Welcome back. So yesterday was a epically messy day. Respirator, goggles, ear protection, and grinding and cutting all day. I had mostly taken the floor sections out and drilled the spot welds, and then with the 4-piece floor section repair kit I'm using, I decided to cut the remaining firewall floor to those lines, and those are all, there's a little bit of surface rust there, but for the most part that's not a big deal. I am choosing not to do a complete floor pan replacement because I'm lucky. My rockers are in great shape. There is hardly any surface rust on them. So the water damage in this car was primarily from water sitting in the pans over a long period of time, and so all the low points were really rusted quite through and needed to replace, and certainly could have patched some of that, but it was really easier just to drill out the few dozen spot welds here, make a couple cuts, and gonna lay in a new one. This back section has got a little bit of surface rust on it, and I ground that down with the wire wheel, and we'll use the rust converter treatment. It's a Permatex item, which seems to do a great job of converting it. I've got another project that I had done and have had done for a little over about a year and a half now, and that guy I've checked some areas where it gets where it's enclosed, and the rust converter seems to still be doing a great job. So I'm pretty sold on it. Plus everything I've read says that it's an okay way to go. So doing that, and pulled the floors out, and was not planning on doing the roof, but realizing standing on the ground made working on the roof a bazillion times easier, I went ahead and started scraping. And the roof has got it's got 3 holes strategically placed. My thought is there might have been something bolted to the roof at some point. Anyway, those had failed, and over the years the rain had just soaked in, and so the factory installed kind of sound insulation had soaked all the water in. The rust was everywhere, but it was relatively thin, and it wire wheeled off pretty easily. Now I say that because the day is over and I'm not doing it anymore. All day yesterday, you know, with a grinder up over your head with a wire wheel on it, it definitely takes its toll. So got that ground down. I'm gonna do the rust converter, brush that on this morning, and the sides were in good shape. I have purchased new inner and outer wheel wells for the back, but really planning on only using them in patch situations. That corner is great. That corner is great. When I start to pull off the quarters, I'll see, you know, how great they really are on the other side, and we'll kind of make a determination then. But I have the parts to deal with. A little bit of a spot there I have to deal with, but that's probably into the trunk project, which again I have the replacement kit for, so that will be another fun project. But in the meantime, I'm going to get the ceiling dealt with, and then get the I think the smart way to do it is to clean it all up, get it rust converted, epoxy painted, and then put the headliner rails back in, just so that they're not bouncing around the garage. And not quite sure how that happened. My guess is when the hole was drilled on the top for whatever was bolted on the top, that got pushed down, or maybe in the patch or whatever, but that'll be easy to straighten out. So there we are, today's project. More to come. So while working on the interior roof, I found some holes. It looks like 3 somethings actually drilled through, and then a couple of other holes. I don't know what that's from. Anyway, so it was under about a 1/4 inch of Bondo, and ground all that off, and now I'm going to seal them up. Welcome back. Okay, this is the last section of this video. This has been broken into a few too many sections, but this is the finished product of the floors in 4-piece kit, welded in on those rails that are covered earlier. Happy with how it all turned out, and left the transmission tunnel undone because I'm going to probably make that larger so that I have a ton of room for transmission options. A 4L60E is going into it, and it's a tight fit, but it will fit as is. Last car I did, I opened it up a little bit, and it made installation and servicing and plumbing the transmission just so much easier. So I'm going to do that again, and I might even size it for a 4L80, which is a much bigger transmission, or maybe even size it for some kind of 6-speed. Anyway, I'll come back to that much later, but the bulk of the floor work is done. Tight up to the rocker panels, seam sealed as needed, and then slathered with a nice 2-part automotive quality primer. And the sideline of all this was that roof. On the previous sections of this video, I showed the roof after having just been scraped. I decided to go back and wire wheel it a lot more, and also did the welding patches as shown up here. And as I did that, I realized that I really needed to strip all of the rust off the roof to make sure there weren't more holes. So I ended up doing a fair amount of body work on the roof, and when I started doing that, I realized that the roof had kind of a little bit of an oil can effect, where the sheet metal was just really very floppy without the insulation. So finished cleaning the roof off on the inside, rust converting it, epoxy paint like crazy, a couple of heavy coats there, and then put on this peel and stick sound insulation. It also does some heat insulation, but it's a very stiff rubber peel and stick kind of thing that once it's on, good luck getting it off. And that gave the roof sheet metal enough rigidity so that I could then come back and do body work, and I did a lot of initial large blocking to figure out my low spots, did a little bit of floating, blocked it again, and then primed the heck out of it, and along with some rust converter. And so I'm really happy with that, in that I've got it really close. It'll need a few more blockings, but the broad strokes of the roof body work is done, and everything is watertight. Any holes were welded up. Another big thing was there's a chrome trim that goes into this spot, which is where the glass channels go, and getting those chrome pieces out is easy enough, just 10 or 12 screws, but then behind it is a kind of a double stick rubbery tape that's been there since 1968, and getting that off was a little bit of a job. Both sides are done, and enough of a rust converter and a little bit of primer in there so that that's a big chunk of work. I decided to do before I finished the floors. Inside, the headliner rails, which are the silvery looking pieces of sheet metal that are backing around the perimeter, those needed a lot of cleaning and reinstallation, but that's nice to get that off the list. So that's pretty much it for this section of video, and thank you for watching. Next one, I believe, is going to be the trunk project. So stay tuned for that, and thank you much.